and gentlemen, it's 6:01. We better call this meeting to order, and I'll start with the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we live, work, and gather on the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin people, specifically the Temiskaming First Nation. We recognize the presence of the Temiskaming First Nation in our community since time immemorial and honor their long history of welcoming many nations to this beautiful territory and uphold and uplift their voice and values. With that, I'll call the meeting to order, and I'll ask the clerk for the roll call, please.
Thank you. Your worship, all members are present with the exception of Councillor Patricia Hewitt.
Thank you very much. Item number 3 is a review of revisions or deletions to the agenda. Is anything going to be added or deleted at this point? Seeing and hearing none. Item number 4 is a motion be resolved the City Council approves the agenda as printed. Moved by Councillor Jelly, second by Councillor MacArthur. All in favor? That is carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature?
Thank you. I have one declaration of conflict coming from Mayor Kidd. He has disclosed on matter 15F, admin report CS 039-2022, as the subject matter of this report is pertaining to animal control, and his son had submitted a proposal for the RFP for that contract.
Is there any other conflict of interest tonight? Seeing and hearing none. We'll move on to the item number 6, review and adoption of the council minutes. And I got a motion be resolved the City Council approves the following minutes as printed. A, the regular meeting of council held on September the 20th, 2022. So moving to seconder for that motion, Councillor Furrier, second by Councillor Foley. Any comments on the minutes? All in favor? That is carried. There are no public meetings pursuant to the Planning Act, Municipal Act, or other statutes. We've reached the first question and answer period. We'll have another one later after the bylaws as well. So does anybody have a question? Or yes? Do you want to come to the podium and state your name and address? So,
I'm Jennifer McEwen, and I have my question here if you guys want a copy.
So maybe you can pass them out after. If you want.
After? Okay.
Sure.
My question is regarding 15E. I feel it's pretty pertinent that I talk on this agenda tonight. So it states, 15E states that the council directs staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to amend bylaw number 2019-106 to repeal the appointment for Jennifer McEwen, myself, as a bylaw enforcement officer, and to appoint Wendy Villeneuve, Sherry Villeneuve, Nancy Rourke, and Claire Proctor for the purpose of enforcing the city's animal control bylaw and noise bylaw as it relates to animal control and pound services for consideration at the October 4th council meeting. I am Jennifer McEwen, and I run Northern Animal Rescue and Sanctuary, and while I am curious as to why my appointment as bylaw enforcement officer is being repealed without notifying me, I am even more curious as to why council appointed me as bylaw control officer without notifying me whatsoever in the first place. I was asked by another pet rescue to pick up a dog in 2019, and that being Animals First, and that I would have a supply of vulnerable sector check in order to do so and help in the future. I did the sector, and nothing became of it. Actually, I was told I was not allowed in that facility, and I never went back again. And I'm also banned on the Facebook page. So being an animal control officer and not being allowed in the facility or access to the Facebook page is, anyways. So I save hundreds of dogs and cats as well as my team, and so complied with the request as I believe it was the best interest of that dog and any other dog I have. I have rescued numerous pets since then in the Temiskaming Shore area, though I have been unaware that A, I have had, as of this meeting, continue to have the authority of a bylaw enforcement officer, B, that I have been representing Temiskaming Shores and Council in my pet rescue actions, C, that someone has been receiving financial compensation for my and my team's deeds and my actions, because I certainly have not received anything. D, that as a council appointed bylaw enforcement officer, I may have had insurance, ethics, and protocol requirements and financial and legal liability that go along with such appointment. and E, that there are some process in which an appointment officer of this council should be notified and consulted as to their appointment and of any repeal of that appointment. In other words, I have been an unpaid bylaw enforcement officer for 3 years to further someone else's financial gain without my knowledge. I would think that it would be someone's responsibility to let me know. I think that the same of the repeal. And can someone please tell me what the hell's going on? Thank you.
I don't know. I think we'd have to go back through the minutes, Jennifer, and see when you were appointed. There's got to be records sometime or other back in the last 3 or 4 years, actually, when you were actually appointed and what your role was. And I mean, you should have been notified at that time, but I think we'll have to go back through some minutes. Or Amy, if you want to just make a comment as well.
It appears that the bylaw 2019-106 set out appointments at that time of that contract.
Okay.
So what we're doing today is really just cleaning up those appointments to make sure the proper officials
Gotcha.
under the contract are appointed to do so. So it's basically amending that bylaw to ensure that your name is no longer appointed.
Everything that's been going on for the last 3 years, everything I've done for the city, and I was apparently deemed a bylaw officer. What's that mean?
I can't speak to what took place in the last few years. I understand that maybe the relationship that was originally set out under the contract in 2019 maybe did not continue.
Anything. I'd never seen a contract. Nothing was ever given to me or anything. So I don't know.
So there could have been just a discrepancy as to the appointed officers operating under Animals First and appointing, so this is just individuals under Animals First to basically do that provision of animal control. So we are cleaning that up. You are now officially not an officer as per this bylaw is what we're recommending to amend it appropriately.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess I'll go. I'm sure we'll be speaking again. So who do I bill for all the animals I've picked up in your jurisdiction? Just curious. Because there's a lot. And we actually my team is very good at keeping records. Appreciate it, guys.
Thank you.
And we'll keep doing our job because.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. We have a presentation. Oh, yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sure. Your name and address, sir, just for the records.
My name is John Shimko. I live in 59 O'Connor in Temiskaming. However, I do have property on Sharp Lake, the Temiskaming region of Sharp Lake. So I am a ratepayer and a voter in this district. Following up on that question, I have a fairly good understanding on council matters as I was on Temiskaming Council, and I think the concern that Jen has on this is the fact that there are probably legal implications in terms of her being appointed as a bylaw officer without her knowledge. Simply because she, A, has the power of a bylaw officer and does at this moment until the motion is carried through to remove her, and she basically she's representing the city. So I know our bylaw officer, there's a lot of insurance protections, et cetera, for him, and a lot of other bylaw officers carry their own insurances for that. I really think that Jen deserves a little bit of consideration and answers as to the process and how she was appointed without her knowledge. Because I think that's the real issue. I mean, by repealing it, it more or less fixes the problem in the future. But I mean, there are still items where she could have rescued an animal from a residence, and now people are saying, well, she was a city bylaw officer at that time, and that puts it in an entirely different legal perspective. So I would hope that council respectfully gives answers to Jen as to how that process is, and that the process is corrected in the future.
Yeah, I think we'll have to go back to the Animal First contract from 2019 and see whether there was any mention of that at that time, and go back to some minutes there and see how she got appointed. I mean,
Yeah, well, council, as far as I know, council appointed them in 2019-16 as a motion to appoint Roxanne St. Germain and Jennifer McCune as bylaw officers. That's from the minutes that I've gone back for your council minutes, if that helps at all.
No, okay, that's great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Who wants to go first? Mike?
Yeah, I would tend to think we should go back to look at the PPP minutes. This is a committee that Councillor Jelly and Mayor Kidd are on with myself, and we recommend to council appointments, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this would have had to be looked at by, I would believe, our committee before it came to council.
Doug?
Yeah, I agree. We need to go back and find out how this happened. I think we'll know why. The only thing I was going to say, Jennifer, if you've never held yourself out to be a bylaw officer, then there's no issues.
I didn't know.
No, exactly. So there's no.
I could have done.
You could have, yes. But the point is, you didn't.
But I did do a lot of her job under the rescue name, not knowing
I see. Okay. Well, we'll get to the bottom of it and get back to you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. So, moving on, we have a presentation tonight. It's 2021 audited financial statements, and I think Steve Ackland's going to speak to it first, and then we'll go from there. Steve presented this to our corporate services meeting last Thursday, I believe it was. So.
All right. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council, and all those present this evening. The 2021 draft financial statements were presented to the Corporate Services Committee by our municipal auditor, Mr. Steve Ackland, on Friday, September 30th. Mr. Ackland will be presenting the 2021 consolidated audited financial statements for the City of Temiskaming Shores, and I'm available for any questions relating to the financials. We will begin the presentation with the independent auditor's report, which can be found on pages 2 and 3 of the consolidated financial report within your package. I would like to invite Mr. Ackland to present the opinion, followed by the financials.
Switch spots and yeah, we'll do that. Good evening. So we're finally here with the statements, and I'll start on the next page by request. The opinion. I won't read the whole auditor's report. We have audited the consolidated financial statements of the Corporation of the City of Temiskaming Shores, which comprise the consolidated statement of financial position as at December 31, 2021, and the consolidated statements of operations, change in net financial assets, net debt, and cash flows for the year then ended, and notes to the financial statements, including a summary of significant accounting policies. In our opinion, the accompanying consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the financial position of the Corporation of the City of Temiskaming Shores as at December 31, 2021, and the results of its operations, change in net financial assets, net debt, and cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian public sector accounting standards. That's what you want us to say. So we'll go on to the next page, the consolidated statement of financial position. This is page 4 of the statements, the draft statements. So for the consolidated statement of financial position, we have total financial assets of $20.7 million, made up of cash, taxes receivable, accounts receivable and inventories for resale, and it's an increase of $6.5 million from 2020. One big amount in there is the cash, obviously has increased significantly. Main reason for that is related to around $4 million of debentures that were received this year. Investments matured at the end of 2021, which were not reinvested until 2022, as well as an increase in one-time funding. There was a federal gas top-up and some other funding that came through. On the liability side, the liabilities are now at almost $19.5 million, up from $15 million. The big increases there is related to the accounts payable and accrued liabilities, just timing from year to year when they were paid. So there were some liabilities not paid till just after year end. And then the municipal debt has increased by almost $2.5 million. And that's related to receipt of almost $4 million and debt repayments of $1.5 million. And that brings us to our net financial asset net debt number. This number has increased by $2.1 million, and that represents your reserve, surplus, and deficit balances. And then your non-financial assets, mainly being tangible capital assets, plus some supply inventory and prepaid expenses of $80.6 million, brings to your accumulated surplus number of $81.9 million. Any questions on that statement? Okay, we'll move on to the next page, which brings us actually into the notes. So we'll go through essentially your statement of operations, but more on your cash budget basis. And then we'll go to the statements on a PSAB basis. So overall, your actual revenues were $28.5 million compared to your budget of $28.2 million. So really the one main difference there is the proceeds on disposal of tangible capital assets of about $300,000 that were not budgeted. On the capital revenue side, you'd budgeted $2.7 million. The actual were $2.4. And the main difference there is related to the federal gas tax. That was related to the roads program, which is essentially a 2-year budget. So there's $300,000 of the federal gas tax money that hasn't been used yet. And then the new debt issued, you budgeted 4.6, and the actual was $4 million. And again, that relates to some capital items that were not, the purchase wasn't completed in 2021, so you'll have those, the debt, those purchases and the related debt in 2022. But overall, you know, on a line-by-line basis, pretty much what you budgeted to receive, you received. So, I mean, can't get much closer than that. So, moving on to the next page, the expenditures. On a budget basis, you had budgeted around $25 million, and the actual was 24.6. The main area in there in the decrease is in the planning, mostly related to the PDAC, which couldn't be fully, couldn't do the full program as in a normal year. And then on the capital expenditure side, you had budgeted $12 million, the actual is 4.2. There were several items in there. Some projects just weren't able to be done. Getting contracts, delivery of some equipment couldn't be done until after the end of the year. So that's the big difference, decrease of about $8 million on, spent $8 million less than you expected. The long-term debt repayments, budgeted 1.4, actuals 1.4. So overall, your total expenditures, you'd budgeted 38.7, the actual was 30.3. And so on a budget basis, you had budgeted a deficit of 3 million, which would have been reflected in transfers from reserves. Your actual results were a surplus on a budget basis of almost 4.6 million, with 5 million of that actually going into reserves. So the big difference there really came down to those capital projects just not being able to be completed during the year. Any questions on that? Okay, we'll go on to the next page. So this is your consolidated statement of operations on a PSAB basis. So the revenues are all the same, other than we don't reflect the long-term debt received, or the new debt received on this statement. So you can see on a budget basis, you budgeted 30.9 million, and the actual was 30,283,000, which is, again, as I said, you pretty much did what you'd expected. On the expenditure side, now these expenditures do not include the capital purchases, but do include amortization. So you budgeted 29.6 million, and the actual is 28.5 million. Again, the main is really in that planning and development, no big change there. So your annual surplus, you'd budgeted 1.3 million on a PSAB basis, and the actual is 1.7 million. Any questions?
Any questions at all?
Okay, we'll move on to the consolidated statement of change in net financial assets, net debt. And so you can see the middle column is the actuals. So you had your annual surplus of 1.7 million, and with your changes in tangible capital assets of 500,000. There's acquisition of prepaid expenses of 144,000. So your increase in net financial assets, net debt this year was just over 2.1 million, bringing you from a net debt position of 840,000 to a net financial asset position of 1,278,000. And moving on to the consolidated statement of cash flows. So your annual surplus was 1.7 million. You had cash provided by operating activities of 7.3 million, cash used for capital activities of 3.9 million, cash provided by financing activities of almost 2.5 million, bringing you an increase in cash of 5.9 million, which raised your cash from just under 7.8 to almost 13.7 million. And that's all in your bank at the end of the year. Any questions? So the last page I'll bring you to is in the notes as well. So this is just your accumulated surplus, which breaks down your various reserve balances, and then your surplus deficit being your amounts to be recovered, which is your municipal debt, and a capital deficit of 500,000 for a total of 1,278,000. As you can see, there's a large increase in the working capital reserve. Again, that relates to some of, you had budgeted to do those capital projects and use reserves, you weren't able to, so as those projects get completed this year and possibly next year, those reserves will then go back down. Any questions?
Questions? So, once we approve the audit statements, this will be on our website for everybody else to look at as well, there if the public wants to look at and run through it. And some of the new candidates will have that access to that information as well. So,
I'll be sending through DocuSign like I did last year, the rep letter and a copy of the statements that get signed, and then if everyone can sign that, then we'll have that copy available for everyone.
So there's nothing that we need to sign now at all? So no, you'll do it through DocuSign?
I'll do it through DocuSign. I think that's easier sometimes.
Well,
okay, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you very much. So, we're in pretty good shape financially there, so. We have a motion. Be it resolved, the Council of the City of Temiskaming Shores hereby acknowledges receipt and approves the 2021 consolidated financial statements for the City of Temiskaming Shores as prepared by the firm of Kemp, Elliott & Blair, LLP, Chartered Accountants, and the Council directs the Treasurer to provide public notice that a copy of the 2021 consolidated financial statements are available at City Hall and on the City's website in accordance with Section 295 of the Municipal Act 2001. Who would like? Councilor Ferrier, second by Councilor Foley. Any last questions? All in favor? That is carried. Thanks, Steve. Item number 10 is communications. 10A is a letter from Sheila Olan McLean, the president of the Ontario Coalition for Better Childcare, and there's a proclamation request for the 22nd annual Child Care Worker and Early Childhood Educator Appreciation Day coming up on October the 18th. And the proclamation to be presented under new business. And 10B is a letter from Michelle Caron, the Communications and Executive Coordinator for the District of Temiskaming Social Services Administration Board regarding the 2022 second quarter quarterly report. That's been received for our information. So we have a motion be resolved the City Council agrees to deal with communication items 10A through 10B according to the agenda references. Moved by Councillor Whalen, second by Councillor Jelly. Any questions? All in favor? That is carried. Item number 11 is the committees of council, the community and regional, and I got a motion to be resolved the following minutes be accepted for information. A, the minutes of the Temiskaming Shores Library Board meeting held on June the 22nd, 2022. So moving and second of that motion, Councillor Foley, second by Councillor MacArthur. All in favor? That is carried. There are no committees of council. The internal departments, are there any reports by members of the council tonight? So, seeing none. Oh, Councilor Ferrier, sorry.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just wanted to say thank you to the Keepers of the Circle for their invitation, to us to participate in their walk and ceremony today to really recognize the missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. Amy, Ariana, James, and I, we all had an opportunity to participate in the walk and the ceremony afterwards. And, I can truly say that it was an experience to go through it, and I'm definitely an ally. But to see the folks putting their time and their effort and really trying to educate the community and really bringing some kind of support to the families that are struggling with these folks that are still missing. I just wanted to say thank you. It really was a privilege and an honor to be able to participate. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The other thing I wanted to bring up was the 100th anniversary of the 1922 fire. We had a great weekend. We had fireworks on Thursday night. We had a parade on Saturday. The fire department did a great job. And we had Latchford, we had Cobalt, we had Coleman, we had Hillbury. And it was an excellent parade. We had a great evening on Saturday night, the gala banquet. I want to thank Tiffany White for all her expertise and work there organizing this whole event. And Steve had firemen's activities, I guess, going on most of the day Saturday as well. So I think it was a great event. It brought back, or at least I tried to educate people as to what all happened. And I mean, there was 18 townships plus a major portion of the town of Hillbury that actually burnt in that fire. North Cobalt and over into Quebec as far as that goes on. So it's, I think we need to probably educate, get more information into the public schools and high schools even to educate our students of some of the local histories that goes on, because I'm sure a lot of kids have no idea that this area was devastated by that fire back then. So but it was an excellent event. I want to thank Chris and all his organizing staff there with the Heritage Museum there as well. So Mike, you want to comment as well?
I didn't even have a clue to the fact that this fire went even into Nedilac, Quebec. Mm-hmm. So that, this was huge.
Doug?
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. It is a shame that our children learn history in schools and they don't learn the history of our own area. Just a second comment on something else. Last Friday morning at 9 a.m., we did the dedication of the community hall, known to now as Lawrence Von Eckensviller Community Hall. We had a reasonably nice turnout. Unfortunately, our band couldn't be there, but we had a short, nice ceremony with the family, and they are very, very pleased with the outcome.
Thank you, sir. Any other reports? If not, no notice of motions tonight, or is there any notice of motion? I should ask that rather than just say there isn't. New business, 15A, proclamation, Child Care Worker and Early Childhood Educator Appreciation Day. And the motion reads, whereas years of research confirms the benefits of high-quality early learning and child care for young children's intellectual, emotional, social, and physical development and later life outcomes, and whereas child care promotes the well-being of children in response to the needs of families and the broader community by supporting quality of life so that citizens can fully participate in and contribute to the economic and social life of their community, and whereas the trained and knowledgeable registered early childhood educators and child care staff are the key to quality in early learning and child care programs, whereas registered early child care educators and child care workers will be vital to the success of the Canada-wide early learning and child care system. Now therefore be it resolved that October 18th, 2022 be designated Child Care Worker and Early Child Care Educator Appreciation Day in recognition of the education, dedication, and commitment of child care workers to children and their families and the quality of life in our communities. So, first mover and seconder, Councillor Ferrier. Second by Councillor Jelly. All in favor? That is carried. I will wet my whistle before the next one. 15B, Fire Prevention Week 2022. Whereas the City of Temiskaming Shores is committed to ensuring the safety and security of all those living in and visiting Temiskaming Shores, whereas fire is a serious public safety concern both locally and nationally, and homes are the locations where people are at greatest risk from fire, and whereas smoke alarms detect smoke well before you can, alerting you to danger in the event of a fire in which you may just have seconds to escape safely, and whereas working smoke alarms save lives by providing early warning of the fire so that you and your family can safely escape, and whereas Temiskaming Shores residents should be sure everyone in the home understands the sounds of the alarm and knows how to respond. And whereas residents who have planned and practiced the home fire escape plan are more prepared and will therefore be more likely to survive a fire. And whereas Temiskaming Shores residents will make sure that their smoke and carbon monoxide alarms meet the needs of all their family members, including those with sensory and physical disabilities. And whereas Temiskaming Shores first responders are dedicated to reducing the occurrence of home fires and home fire injuries through prevention and public fire safety education. And whereas Temiskaming Shores residents are responsive to public education measures and are able to take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. And whereas the 2022 Fire Prevention Week theme, Plan a Record-Breaking Escape, effectively serves to remind us of the importance in planning and practicing a home fire escape plan and knowing two ways out of the house in an emergency. Now therefore be it resolved, the Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores does hereby proclaim October the 9th to the 15th, 2022 as Fire Prevention Week and urges all residents to plan a record-breaking escape. And further, that residents be encouraged to support public safety activities and efforts of the Temiskaming Shores Fire and Emergency Services during Fire Prevention Week. Very well done, Steve. I appreciate that. For mover and second, Councillor Whalen. Second by Councillor Foley. Comments? All in favor? That is carried. 15C, a resolution for a Draven alert system. I got a motion whereas Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores received correspondence requesting changes to the Amber Alert system and creation of a new alert called Draven Alert. And whereas the internal Amber Alert is a warning system that quickly alerts the public of a suspected abduction of children who are in imminent danger, with the goal to broadcast as much information about the child, the abductor, and suspect vehicles as quickly as possible so that the public can respond with any relevant information that might lead to the child's safe return. And whereas the recent tragic death of 11-year-old Draven Graham showed that the Amber Alert system is flawed when it comes to vulnerable children who can go missing but are not abducted. And whereas it is clear that there needs to be an addition to the alert system to allow the law enforcement to send out an alert for vulnerable children who go missing under circumstances that do not involve an abduction but are at serious risk of injury or death. Now therefore be it resolved, the Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores requests that the Minister of the Solicitor General and the Commissioner of the Ontario Provincial Police, as well as the Premier's Office, be requested to make the necessary changes to the Amber Alert system and create a new alert called the Draven Alert, which will protect vulnerable children who have not been abducted and are at high risk of danger, injury, or death, and alert the public that they are missing. And further, that the copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities, MP Anthony Rhoda, and MPP John Bantoff. So, move for Councillor Ferrier. Chairman, Councillor Jelly. Comments? Councillor Jelly.
Yes, just a quick comment. You see the importance of that. Proximity to the river and what have you, bushland. So fortunately he was saved, but this is certainly a welcome move.
Any other comments? Call a question. All in favor? That is carried. 15D is a resolution for mandatory firefighter certification. And the motion reads, whereas municipal governments provide essential services to the residents and businesses in their communities, and whereas the introduction of new provincial policies and programs can have an impact on municipalities, and whereas municipal governments are generally supportive of efforts to modernize and enhance the volunteer and full-time fire services that serve Ontario communities, and whereas the Association of Municipalities of Ontario believes in principle that the fire certification is a step in the right direction. It has not endorsed the draft regulations regarding firefighter certification presented by the province. And whereas the municipality and AMO are concerned with 30-day consultation period being insufficient to fully understand the effects of such regulations will have on municipal governments and their fire services. And whereas the fire chiefs have advised that the Ontario firefighter certification process will create additional training and new cost pressures on fire services. And whereas AMO, on behalf of the municipal government, in a letter to the Solicitor General Jones dated February 25, 2022, made numerous comments and requests to address the shortcomings in the draft regulations. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Temiskaming Shores does hereby support AMO's recommendations, and further that the City of Temiskaming Shores hereby calls on the Solicitor General of Ontario to work with AMO, municipal governments, and fire chiefs across Ontario to address the concerns raised so that municipalities can continue to offer high-quality services to their community, and further that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario and the Federation of Northern Ontario Municipalities. So, mover and seconder for that motion. Moved by Councillor Whalen, second by Councillor MacArthur. Any comments? Councillor Whalen.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I just want to say that I've made numerous delegations on this topic, both with former Minister Jones and now with Minister Kersner, and I've spoken at length with our own fire chief and several others. Minister Kersner, just like Minister Jones, firmly believes in standardized training, but I think he's a little more understanding of municipalities' need to adjust to the extra cost, and the firefighters themselves need time to do this. You have to remember in Northern Ontario we rely heavily on volunteers that have other work to do as well. So I appreciate this motion and certainly help. Thank you.
Any comments you want to make at all, Steve?
I would comment. I do agree it's good to support the resolution, if nothing else, just to get it on the books to say that we do have it. I'd like to just point out that it's no longer a draft regulation. It was filed under the Fire Protection and Prevention Act on April 14th. And came into force on July 1st. So currently as it sits, it's something we have to look into moving forward. But I'm hopeful that, I know W5 showed a little blurb, 83% of Canadian firefighters are volunteers. And I'm quite certain they're all sharing the same concerns that the 21 fire chiefs I spoke with when this first came out have.
Thanks, Steve. I will Mike, comment?
Yeah, we're in a two-tier situation here, and I think that we've got to look at the big communities that can afford a full-time fire brigade, and volunteers are in the other tier. And I think the rules should be for one and rules for two. You got to do it that way. It's only fair. And I hope that some common sense hits Queen's Park, and we come out and save our volunteers from, we don't have volunteers, we're in big trouble for fire protection.
Thank you, sir. I will call the question. All in favor? That is carried. 15E, Memo 042-2022 CS, the appointment of bylaw enforcement officers for the animal control. And the motion reads, be resolved that council for the city of acknowledge receipt of Memo 042-2022 CS. And the council directs staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to amend bylaw 2019-106 to repeal the appointment of Jennifer McEwen as a bylaw enforcement officer and to appoint Wendy Venn, Sherry Villeneuve, Nancy Rourke, and Claire Proctor for the purpose of enforcing the city's animal control bylaw and noise bylaw as it relates to animal control and pound services for the consideration at tonight's October 4th regular council meeting. So, moved and seconded for that motion. Moved by Councillor Ferrier, seconded by Councillor Jelly. Comments? Yes, Councillor Jelly.
Yes, I have a few concerns with this, bearing in mind that Jennifer McEwen was just here and has been a bylaw officer for the past few years and didn't realize it. Now, unless I missed it, I did read the report, and these people have all submitted their vulnerable sector checks. Are these people aware that they were submitted for bylaw officers, or has it just been sent in as a list of names as bylaw officers? The second part of my question is, what training is provided to these bylaws officers so they understand what their authority actually is? Some people get a legal authority and they can carry it a little bit too far. So I'm a little bit, and it is our liability also because we're appointing them. So I'm just curious as to whether we should pass this motion tonight or whether we should ask Amy to get a hold of these people and make sure they're aware that their names appear on here and they don't show up on our doorstep or next council's doorstep and say, what the heck went on? I think we need to exercise a little caution. Thank you.
Comments, Amy? You're fine with that? And maybe doing some kind of a training session, so maybe Gabe could do that to make sure these people are aware of what their authorities are?
I believe the appointment just would make sure that those people operating under Animals First are covered. I can't speak to any of the training that they'd be provided. Obviously, through the contract, if any employees, it would have specified that it would likely be Animals First responsibility to ensure that their staff or any officers under them. So that would mean that those people, would be able to pick up animals, provide reports, that sort of thing. I'm not sure to what extent these individuals at this time, but it may not hurt to make sure that their consent and their awareness for sure.
Doug?
Yeah, I agree with you. It should be their responsibility to train them. My concern is we are appointing them. So if nothing else, I would have Gabe talk to them and explain the limitations of the bylaw officer. That does not give you permission to go into a home. It's a bylaw. It's not a provincial statute or anything. So I'm just curious. Thank you.
You asked them to postpone this motion? Is that what you're...
Yes, I am. I would like to have that come back.
Moved by Councillor Jelly to postpone. We have a seconder for that motion. Councillor MacArthur. Comments? Yes, Jeff?
I don't have an issue with postponing it, but I do have an issue with Jennifer McEwen. Still, if we do defer it, she wasn't aware, and we're revoking those privileges. So we almost need to, deal with that item tonight.
We could break this motion into two as far as that goes.
Yeah, it's just my recommendation. Thank you.
So if we, Councillor Ferrier and Councillor Jelly, if you wanted to make the motion that we repeal Jennifer McEwen's appointment, Danny, you want to comment, or?
Yeah, I want to support Councillor Jelly's comments. I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding. I didn't want to get into it with the young lady, but this appointment, as we're saying, they're being appointed as a bylaw officer. No, they're not. They're being appointed as an animal control bylaw officer. That's the first mistake. The title is wrong. I believe, though, that the city should vet these because the city owns the contract with Animal First. We fund it. As far as extra pay, it's an appointment as far as it pertains to the animal control contract. So the price of the contract, it's fixed. If they're getting paid, it's under that fixed price by Animal First. But I do think the city should take part in vetting the list of names, and I agree that we should deal with rescinding the appointment for the young lady this evening.
So we stopped at motion after the council directs staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to amend bylaw 2019-106 to repeal the appointment of Jennifer McEwen as bylaw enforcement officer, and just stop it at that point. Councillor Ferry, you're in favor of that? Councillor Jelly? Well, call the question for that particular part of the motion. All in favor? That would be carried. So, and then Councillor Jelly's made the motion to postpone the second part of the motion to appoint these 4 different individuals, and Councillor MacArthur seconded that. Comments before we vote on that second part? Councillor MacArthur?
And as I said earlier, I would like to go back and see the PPP minutes where we made this recommendation and any other recommendations we made to council.
Okay. Okay, all in favor of that motion? That would be carried. Okay. I've declared my conflict on item 15F, so since my deputy mayor is not present tonight, I'll ask our stand-in, Jesse Foley, to come and take over the chair. Deal with this particular new business, and I'll vacate the room. Thank you. Okay. Okay.
All right, I'll read Administrative Report CS 039-2022, Animal Control and Pound Services Update. Be it resolved that the Council of the City of Temiskaming Shores acknowledges receipt of Administration Report number CS 039-2022, and that Council confirms the Animal Control and Pound Services request for proposal CS RFP 003-2022 be deemed cancelled and void. The Council directs staff under the direction of the City Manager to review the level of service required by the service in consultation with an animal professional for development of a new request for proposal, an animal control bylaw for council's consideration at a future meeting, and further that a council agrees to have animal control portfolio remain with the Protection to Persons and Property Committee for review prior to council's consideration. Can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor MacArthur, seconder. Councillor Jelly. Any questions? Councillor Whalen?
Just wording, consideration of future meeting. There's a great possibility that could extend into the next council. I just want to make sure that's a clear meaning that, okay, I'm good.
Okay. Any other comments? I call the question. All in favor? The motion is carried. I'll call Carmen or Mayor Kidd back.
Okay, moving on, item 15G, Administrative Report CS 040-2022, the Temiskaming Shared Services. I got a motion to be resolved, the Council of the City of Temiskaming Shores hereby acknowledge receipt of Administrative Report CS 040-2022. The Council directs staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to enter into a shared services agreement with the municipality of Temiskaming for building services for Council's consideration at tonight's regular Council meeting. So, moved by Councilor Whalen, second by Councilor Foley. Any questions? All in favor? That is carried. 15H, Administrative Report CS 041-2022, the Temiskaming Festival of Music and Lease Agreement. And I got a motion to be resolved, the Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores acknowledge receipt of Administrative Report CS 041-2022. The Council hereby directs staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to enter into a lease agreement with the Temiskaming Festival of Music for $100 per month plus applicable taxes for a 3-year term for consideration at tonight's regular Council meeting. So, mover and seconder, Councilor Foley, second by Councilor Jelly. All in favor? Oh, quick comment first, Danny.
We're going to identify the facility in the bylaw.
It's always been listed, Paul, I guess. So.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just not in the resolution. That's why I want to make sure it's in the bylaw.
It's in the bylaw, yeah. Okay. Councilor MacArthur.
Yes, this was a tradition years and years ago, and it always was at the community hall, and I'm glad to see it back.
So, if we get into accessibility upgrades sometime in the next couple of years, we may have to maybe move to a different facility for a while they do the renovations, whatever, but we'll see. We'll have to get the funding first for the accessibility upgrades. Any other comments? All in favor? That is carried. 15I is Memo 011-2022 PW, the event road closure policy and procedure. And motion be resolved that Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores acknowledge receipt of Memo 011-2022 PW. The Council directs staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to adopt an event road closure policy for the City of Temiskaming Shores for consideration at tonight's regular Council meeting. So, moved by Councilor Jelly, second by Councilor LaFerrier. So, comments? Mitch is here to answer all questions. Councilor Jelly.
Just a complimentary to Mitch for bringing that up. That should save a little bit of work and get clarity on what's going on. Thank you.
Yeah, everything will be all standardized now. They'll get an application form and they'll fill out all the information we need. So that's good. Yes, Councilor Jelly.
Just one quick request. Ex-councillors are exempt from that, correct?
Call the question. All in favor? That is carried. 15J, Administrative Report PW027-2022, the RFP award for the Hillary Water Treatment Plant Filtration Rehabilitation. I got a motion to be resolved the Council for the City of Temiskaming Shores acknowledge receipt of Administrative Report PW027-2022. And the Council directs staff to reallocated $100,000 from the Robert Elm Pumping Station Bypass Installation Project to the Hillbury Water Treatment Plant Filter Rehabilitation Project within the approved 2022 environmental capital budget. And the Council directs staff to prepare the necessary bylaw to enter into an agreement with Continental Carbon Group Incorporated for the rehabilitation of one filter at the Hillbury Water Treatment Plant in the amount of $360,820 plus applicable taxes for consideration at tonight's regular Council meeting. So, moved by Councilor LaFerrier, second by Councilor Foley. So, all in favor? So, that just shows you the cost of providing water and sewer when you got to redo one filtration system out of the 3, So, moving on to bylaws. Motion be it resolved that bylaw 2022-150 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2019-106 to appoint municipal law enforcement officers for the purpose of enforcing the city's animal control bylaw. And we've got to repeal the Jennifer McEwen. Okay. So we'll have to draft up a new bylaw for the one that's been postponed, or actually a new one, yes. Okay. So this would be, yes, okay. And bylaw 2022-151 being a bylaw to enter in an agreement with the municipality of Temiskaming for chief building official and building inspection services. Bylaw 2022-152, being a bylaw to enter into a lease agreement with the Temiskaming Music Festival of Music for the rental of space at the Lawrence Bun Eckenviller Community Hall. Bylaw 2022-153, being a bylaw to adopt an event road closure policy for municipal road allowances and right-of-ways and public lands. And lastly, bylaw 2022-154, being a bylaw to enter into an agreement with Continental Carbon Group Incorporated for the Hillbury Water Treatment Plant filter rehabilitation. So most of these bylaws be hereby introduced and given first and second reading. So moved by Councillor Kelly, second by Councillor Foley. All in favor? That is carried. And bylaw, be it resolved that bylaws 2022-150 is amended, 151, 152, 153, and 154 be given third and final reading, be signed by the mayor and clerk and the corporate seal affixed thereto. Moved by Councillor Ferrier, second by Councillor MacArthur. Any last comments? All in favor? That is carried. Okay, next, the last two council meetings for this particular term of council is Tuesday, October the 18th, and the last one is Tuesday, November the 1st. And the new council will take over on November the 15th. So that'll be their inaugural meeting. Second question and answer period. Anything on the chat box at all? Shelley, is there one?
I have a question from Miranda Marriott. She's asking about the new development behind Walmart, and will the transit route be changed to run in front of this building and through the Diamond area?
I mean, all we're doing at this point is straightening the Staddle Trail up through there, making it parallel with the actual Grant Drive extension. They're going to have a couple entrances coming in from the properties possibly being sold behind the mall, so that will impact the Staddle Trail with a driveway, or maybe one or two driveways coming across there, so that will impact it slightly. I don't think it's no different than any other roadway we've got in the municipality either, so I think it will be basically down to a gravel surface or a base surface until they get around the paving, and that probably won't happen until midsummer, I would think, time MTO gets around. Mitch, you want to just make a couple comments on that?
Shelley, was the question regarding the building or the road? The building. So they're talking about Jarlette's building.
Well, they're talking about Diamond building.
So right now the bus goes down Grant Drive, takes a left on Drive and Theater, and then goes down Lorette, I believe. So currently at this time, there has been no discussion about implementing a route towards the Jarlette's building, but that's certainly something that we can talk about as a transit committee moving forward. Thank you.
We may get to the point where we want to put a stop somewhere between the seniors housing building and Jarlette's, somewhere in that vicinity there. I think maybe it might be wise.
Yes, that's correct. So we do have a stop right now heading that way at the Walmart entrance. So that's something that we can look at doing for sure.
Yeah, it's great for people actually use the Walmart stop there to get on and off there. So we'd have to see whether there's enough necessary people getting on and off there. I don't think you probably don't have many at the seniors building that don't drive, so there may not be much of a need for it there, but we'll look into that. So, okay. Any other questions? That's it. We have a closed session, so we'll take a 10-15 minute break there. And we've got a motion to be resolved. The council agrees to convene at 7:15 to discuss the adoption of the September 20th, 2020 closed session minutes. B is under section 239-2K, a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on or by or on behalf of the municipality or local board for transit update. And lastly, the update under section 239-2B, personnel matters about identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. So, we're moving to seconder. Move for Councillor Ferrier, second by Councillor MacArthur. All in favor? That is carried. We are adjourned for 15 minutes or so.